So my name's Callie, I'm here from South Essex College today, and part of my role is I'm the Employer Engagement Manager. So I work with a lot of organisations external to the college, but I also do a lot with clients on a one-to-one basis. So I'm here today to go through several different things. So essentially the aim of today is to improve your CV, but also to work on some interview techniques. Okay, so have you all got CVs? Have you all done interviews? I'm assuming you're dab hands at this as it is anyway. But I'm just going to go through some of the pitfalls that I find dealing with clients on a day-to-day basis. Just a couple of errors and a couple of tweaks that you guys might be able to make, which will just be the difference to getting your foot in the door and getting on the career ladder that you guys want to go down. So, first things first, I'm going to give you a little bit about myself. So I was one of the youngest regional retail managers for a very large fashion company at the age of 18. So I was in charge of 12 stores across the country, have to travel up and down to Scotland on a daily basis, but as part of my role it was recruitment. So I was hiring managers, I was hiring sales staff, dealing with a range of people from a range of ages and a range of backgrounds, but also a range of experiences. So my experience is around about 10 years worth within recruitment, so whether that's a manager, whether that's a sales exec, or whether it's now at the moment within FE. So I've got 5 years within education, so I've worked with other managers, I've worked with area managers, directors, and I also liaise with MDs on a regular basis. So I've got quite a broad knowledge, which I'm hoping that I can bring to you guys today and help you guys out a little bit. So, what do you guys think the most common mistakes are? Just shout out to me. Is there anything that you guys think are the most common mistakes within CVs? So if you were to write a CV, where do you think most people fall down?
Underselling yourself.
Underselling yourself? Big one. You are your own shop window. What else do you think is a big mistake that's very, very common? Content is a big one as well. So I'm going to go through the 5 most common, and I'm not trying to teach you to suck eggs, but the first one is not tailoring your CV. So I appreciate when you're doing a lot of applications for a lot of different organisations, you tend to do a basic CV, but if you don't tailor that to each job role that you're applying for, you won't get picked up. If you don't make any changes to your CV at all today, this would be the only one I'd recommend you definitely do. So the amount of times that myself and my colleague Diane, who's sitting in the front here, or my colleague Vicky at the back, what we see on a day-to-day basis is people applying for hundreds and hundreds of CVs, hundreds and hundreds of different roles, but it's not specific at all. If you're not going to make it specific to the role that you're trying to apply for, you're not going to become successful and move on to the next stage of an interview. Stage 2, wild, unproven claims. Now I am, in the first instance, a little bit of a salesperson, I agree, but within that, I'm not going to stand there and say I'm the best salesman in Europe if I haven't got any evidence to support that. So if you're going to make a claim as something like that, you need to make sure you've got something to support that, or, the same token, dial it down a little bit. Because at the end of the day, the employer is going to buy into you as a person and as an individual. If they see that you're making these wild, unfounded claims, they're going to have some doubts about you. Number 3, ridiculous email addresses. Now we see this a lot with the youth of today. I hope you like my example up here. This is one of the students that we've had apply in. This was her email address. Doesn't really give a professional feel, does it? Professionalism is one of the big things that we need to see, especially with an email address. And with the same token, everyone is on social media nowadays. I appreciate it's the big thing at the moment. But just make sure that it's maybe set up to be private, because employers will look at you, especially within the NHS, especially within anything to do with public sector. Employers will do their research on you, so they will have a look to see if you've got profiles up, and if you've got wild drunken nights or, I don't know, something which might be a little bit unsavoury, just make sure that it's put on a private so nobody else can view that. I know it's really, really common sense, but you would be surprised the amount of people who make that mistake. Big chunks of text. So with your CV, when we were talking about the layout, the easiest way and the quickest way for you to be successful at a CV stage is to just put your job roles into bullet points. If a HR representative or a talent consultant or whoever it might be is viewing your CV, they don't want to sit there and read through loads and loads of paragraphs. If you can keep it slightly shorter, slightly sweeter, and put it into bullet points, what the HR person's going to do, or your talent consultant, are going to pick out, and they're going to be able to scan through a document very, very quickly and be able to see that you're meeting the criteria for the job role very, very quickly, and it will make them very, very happy. And the fifth most common mistake is not showing your impact. So I've got an example on here. So if you can say that you can produce financial reports with reviewing and spending, you need to be able to substantiate that. So putting that you've got a 10k annual saving in there, any statistics, anything financially that you can prove you've had a positive impact on is going to be a huge advantage to you. It's a huge selling point for you as a person to get in that next step, whether it's a promotion within your current organisation, whether it's a brand new role, something you've never done before. You need to be able to sell yourself, but to be able to back that up with evidence and supporting guidance within that as well. Is that all fairly straightforward? Everyone kind of had a feel of that anyway. So these are the fundamental things you need to do when doing a CV. Use a template. If you've not already got a CV, I would use Word. 99.9% of organisations you'll see on there like Word. They don't actually like PDFs, even though it looks a lot more presentable, and I myself have my CV on a PDF. I have it in both formats. I have a Word format, so it's easy for me to edit if I need to amend that, but also most people would like to see that on a Word document because that is what they use. KISS. Now this is an acronym that I was given when I was 18 years old. So when I first started as a manager, they said to me, KISS. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about, KISS? And they said, keep it simple, stupid. Now it's stuck with me ever since then, but it's a case of making sure that your font, don't use all these elaborate fonts and text when you're writing your CV. Keep it as a Calibri or the Arial or a standard font. You can still add tweaks to personalise it to make it seem more like you as a person, but the more elaborate you get with the text and the more complicated that it is, the less likely somebody is to read it. On average, I believe, we'll see a statistic later on, a HR representative will only take 40 seconds to look at your CV before they decide whether you're successful or not. 40 seconds. So that is the window of opportunity that you have to sell yourself. So that's where I've got, you are your own shop window, but don't lie. The amount of people who will say, I can speak fluent German and I can, you know, I've danced all around the world. And then you get called out on that when you've actually got the job. It's not good. So even though we might over-exaggerate a little bit, keep it within reason. We don't want to be going around telling everyone that you can speak fluent German and then maybe have to translate a German document. Something that happened in work recently. Make sure you spell check. Again, spelling mistakes are key. It's one of the big things that we see on a day-to-day basis. The amount of people who will rush through a CV without spelling checking, and straight away it gives an unprofessional appearance. It shows that you're not paying enough attention, and I can guarantee you it will end up in the bin without anyone reading it. So if you can read it yourself, and I would always recommend, get somebody else to reread it for you as well. Get somebody else, somebody who's maybe a colleague at work, whether it's a family member or a friend, someone who's reliable, just get them to read through that and just say, could you just take 2 minutes to double check that to make sure I've not missed anything. The best thing about that is you might be able to get some ideas off of them. They might say, have you thought about X, Y or Z, which you might not have considered adding into that CV. Okay? So I'm going to go through to, let me go back, interviews. How many of you guys have had interviews? Roughly, I'd say, all of you have had an interview at some stage or another, whether it be for college, university, whether it be for a job, part-time. Yeah? How did you find it? Come on, let me get some feedback. How did you find your... Scary? Yeah? Did you? You didn't? It is weird sometimes. You think, do you know what, I've nailed that, I'm sure I've got everything. And then you're not successful. And then the other times, I've done it myself, they ask you a question about, I don't know, safeguarding or equality and diversity, and you think you've answered it and you go, do you know what, I haven't got a clue, I've just winged that a little bit. And they go, that was a fantastic answer. And you're like, oh, yay. Anyone else? Good experiences, bad experiences? Okay. Demanding? Yeah. So you've got through the CV stage, you're happy, you've met all the person specification. These are key things to remember. So if you want to stand out from Joe Bloggs and everybody else in the crowd, common questions. Research some common questions within your industry. So whether it's nursing, it might be a GP, physiotherapy, type it into Google, you've got Bing, you've got so many search engines that are out there. But make sure it's specific to the industry that you're within. Now we have got some fantastic handouts we'll hand out towards the end with some useful interview questions and the most common questions. It might be a case of, why do you think you're suitable for this role? What do you think you can bring to this? How do you feel you're going to have a positive impact in this company? What do you know about us is another one, a key one. If you can tell an organisation what you know about them, that shows that you are committed and you are interested, whether that is for the NHS or whether it's an independent GP surgery, you need to be able to tell them why you want to work for them. You are, at the end of the day, your own best advocate. Research. As a minimum, I would say you need to research on Google the corporate website. Ideally, I would look at their CQC rating. I would look at who their lead GPs are. It might be a case of if they've got some very good senior leaders, if they're doing a lot of TED Talks, anything like that, research papers, any research that they're doing at the moment, so whether it's doctorates and bits and PhDs, etc., all those extra bits, it's worth researching to see if you can learn something yourself from that and take that away. The other thing is considering appearances. A lot of people make a common assumption that you can go in just day-to-day clothes for an interview. In some instances, that's fine, that's not a problem at all, but I would always recommend, from my experience, and that's be me an interviewer, but also an interviewee, both sides of the desk here, I would always go for smart office wear. So whether that's a shirt and tie, whether that's trousers or a nice skirt or dress, something that's really smart and professional that's going to sell you as an individual, because that's what you're doing. Focus. Always make sure you arrive early. So I would research your journey, research the average journey times, how you plan to get to work every day. And I know that sounds really, really common sense and that you would do that anyway. You would be amazed at the amount of people who I've tried to interview who have turned up 45 minutes late and then still expect an interview. I actually made somebody wait 45 minutes once just so they knew what it felt like. Because they couldn't understand why I wouldn't interview them. And I said, do you know what 45 minutes feels like? I tell you what, I'll be back. And I left them waiting, and they've never made that mistake since. I've worked with them, but never made that mistake since. I would always take a pen and a paper with you, irrespective of whether you're going to make notes, whether you're going to take anything down, whether you're going to take anything away with you. Take a pen and paper with you because it gives such a positive message to the interviewer. So it lets them know that you're conscientious, that you're driven, that you're focused, and it gives you time to think about the questions they're asking you. If you need that time, which we all do, you need a couple of minutes just to think, how am I going to answer this? What kind of answer do they want? If you've got a pen and paper in front of you and you make a note of that, especially if they give you how many times have you had a scenario where it's like I don't know, 1 minute it takes them to explain what it is they're actually asking from you, and you've forgotten what the actual question is. If you just pick out a couple of keywords within that, it's something that you can always draw your eye back to and come back to and go, that's what they were asking me. That's what I need to get into. So pen, paper, copy of your CV, and make sure that you're coming across as empowered and as driven, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to employ a robot. If you're sitting them if you're giving them yes and no answers, that's not selling. That's not selling you to me. If I'm sitting there interviewing you, I want you to do 70% of the talking and for me to do around about 30% of the talking. That is a good interview for me. If I just sit there and every now and again I'm just prompting you to get those answers out, but you're talking, but staying on topic. So I don't want you to waffle about what you were doing when you were 10 years old, but with the same token, if you can tell me a bit about your history, your background, why you're interested in this career and what it is that you want to do, why you're passionate about it, why you think you're going to be a fantastic employee for me, that's ticking all my answers without even having to do anything. It makes my life fantastically easy. But it makes me more likely to invite you in for a second stage interview or make you that much more successful and likely to get a job at the end of it. Smile! It's a big one. The amount of people where you're so panic-stricken, and it can be very, very daunting when you're first going into an interview, especially when you're going for more management and more senior roles, and you know you've got a panel interview and you might have to do a presentation, and you're thinking about 101 different things all going on in your head at once. Just take a minute to breathe and smile, because that is more likely to get you the job than anything else. Just smiling, taking a minute to compose yourself, thinking about what it is you're not going to do next. That's hugely, hugely, hugely impactful for an employer. Ask something. Now, I'm sure all of you have had this. At the end of an interview, they go, have you got any questions for me? Is there anything you want to know? Have you got anything you'd like to ask us? And everyone goes, that is a trick question. We want you to ask us something. Whether it's a case of, now the more brave you are, the better. Why is it you like working here? Why do you think I should work for you? Puts interviewers on the spot every single time, and that you can see the dread come over their face when you ask them that. It's fantastic. But it might be a case of, even if it's, so when would I be looking forward to hearing from you? How long will it take for you guys to make a decision on the outcome of today? It could be something like, so how many other candidates have you got to see? Anything like that is making us realise that you're thinking, you're conscious, you're awake, you're involved, you're intrigued. Any of those things, it's going to make us want you, which is what you want. It's a bit round and round, but make notes. So like I said earlier on, with a pen and paper, if you can make notes throughout, again, it's going to be hugely advantageous for you. Anything that's going to make you stand out from the rest of the crowd is going to be of an advantage to you. And end on a positive. So a lot of the times you'll hear people ask you, so what are your best attributes? What would you say your 3 best attributes are? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And it's a case of delivering it as a sandwich. So start on a positive, have potentially your weakness in the middle, but knowing that you've identified that as a weakness and you're working upon it. So a standard one that I will guarantee you everyone will have heard is, I'm a perfectionist, so it takes me a little bit longer to do things, is a standard weakness that I hear 9 times out of 10. But if you can put a spin on that and make it as a positive, so I am a perfectionist, it might take me slightly longer to do something, but it's because I want to make sure it's right first time. I know it's a weakness of mine, I've addressed that, and I appreciate that I can prioritise my skills and my duties to make sure that you get the best out of me. Anything like that is going to be a huge advantage. And ending with, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. And a firm handshake, not this wet lettuce. I can't stand it. We want a nice firm handshake. It shows that you're there in body, in mind, in spirit. but that you are keen and that you want that role. So even if it's a case of going along and hello, how do you do? Even if it's practicing on the family or friends, a nice firm handshake, something like that is going to be every little thing, every one of those little things all adds up, and it's what makes you stand out from everybody else, what makes you memorable. So I've just put some interesting facts on there. I'm not expecting you to read that because it is so small. But that's what I was saying. So 5 to 10 seconds is what it takes for me to look at your CV or anybody else. HR especially, they haven't got time. They're sifting through hundreds of job applications. They want things that are going to be short, sweet and concise. So bullet points, easy font, it's going to make you stand out. Don't worry about your picture, that's really Americanised. We don't want a photo unless you're a supermodel. It's not going to make that much of a difference whether you've got a picture on there or not. Be aware of your competition. A lot of people aren't always aware, especially within the NHS, who your competition is. Only 35% of candidates actually have identified any of their competition. It's just something that you guys should bear in mind to make sure that you're qualified for the role, making sure you're not overqualified, but with the same token, just seeing who your competitors are so you know exactly where you stand in the running. And you know I said earlier on about the email address, you saw that fantastic example. 76% of CVs are ignored because of their email address. So if you haven't already got a professional email address, I'd set yourself up with one. Just your first name and your surname, not with all the extra Y's or all the extra kisses or any of the rest of it, just a really standard first name, surname at wherever it might be. And that could be the difference between your CV ending up in the bin or getting the right role. So that's my email address and my contact number. Feel free, you can contact me on any of those details. We've also got a stand over there so you can come and see us. Does anyone have any questions? I appreciate I've flown through that. I don't want to teach you all how to suck eggs. You've probably got lots of CVs, lots of ideas, but it's just a case of making you guys stand out from everybody else that's in the crowd. One page, I wouldn't say any more than 2. Mine myself is 2 pages long. That's it. References are available upon request. Don't even put referees down because you don't need to. And 9 times out of 10, they'll pick that out within the sifting process anyway. So you're just going to make life a little bit difficult for you. Anything else? No, but if you need me, like I said, we're in the stand over there. Myself and my colleagues are over there. We've also got some fantastic courses that we deliver, whether they're free online courses that you guys can take away. It might be worth upskilling if there's a different industry. Yep, sorry. There you go. But we've also got lots of information over there, so please feel free, come and see us, come and have a chat, pick my brain. Anything that we can do to help, just let us know. Fantastic. Thank you very much.